apparently a little bit of competition coming in there in terms of the longest writing and smallest book and all of that.
We're so competitive?
Just a little bit, just a tad bit competitive. All right, so wrapping up this afternoon, we have Kathy Sucher from Nutrition, Food Science, and Packaging.
Well, last but not least, I actually know a great joke about being the last speaker, but I don't think I have time to tell it. So if you approach me later and there's time, I'll tell it to you in case you ever need to use it. Well, you know, I made a mental list of the things I wanted to talk about to impart all the wisdom that I may have on publishing, getting a publisher, getting a topic for a book, obtaining a publisher, and then go through the whole process. And everyone has already addressed them all. So I'll just talk a little bit about how I fell into writing a textbook, and it literally was falling into it. When I came to San Jose State as a full-time temp lecturer, they asked me, well, what topics could you teach? And there was this topic down at Cal Poly where I had been teaching previously on food and culture, and I dutifully went there every week to get fed. And I said, well, I could teach that class. And so they gave it to me. And lo and behold, there's no textbook for it. And I don't know if you've ever tried to teach a class without a textbook, but and in those days, there was no internet, there was no email, and you looked up all your references in Index Medicus, which some of you probably remember. So, but luckily I met my co-author, Pamela Kittler, and she was a grad student who was taking the food and culture class, and she wanted to do a thesis, and she wanted to write a heart-healthy cookbook. And you know, as diplomatic as I always am, I said, why the hell would you want to do that? There's 1,000 of them out there. And I said, what we really need is a book for this class. And so she did the market research, which was published in a refereed journal, so that we could go to an editor, go to a publisher and say, see, here's the evidence that to show you that we need to publish this book. There'll be a market for it. It was a very small press, ABI Press. And again, because this was not the internet age, and maybe I win, maybe I don't win, but I was pregnant when I wrote the book. Anyways, we finished the book, and we sent it off to ABI Press, very small food science press, and didn't hear from them, and then literally sent it off in a package to them. And so we called them up and said, you know, we do have a contract and we haven't heard from you. He says, you have a contract with us? They had just been bought out by another publisher. So lo and behold, they honored it, they published it, and there was a niche for it. So I guess I want to reiterate, always write a book. If you're going to go to a mainstream publisher and you're going to put a marathon or 30-year effort into it, you want it to fulfill some niche so it does sell. And we're on our 6th edition of Food and Culture. It was first published in 1989. And the second book was written for the same reason. I was tired of using the book I had for my medical nutrition therapy class, and I actually had to have 2 textbooks for the students. One with nursing, was a nursing pathophysiology book, because the current MNT book did not include pathophysiology. So I said, we got to write a book where you have both, and that was the result, and luckily it is done very well as well, and it's in 2nd edition. So just a few things to talk about. I know that it may seem awful to write with other authors, but I find it very useful to have another author. It keeps you going because it is a marathon, and if someone else is running with you, you're more likely to finish the race than not. Writing the book is not the end of the process. There's all of this other awful stuff you have to do at the end, like do the charts, find the pictures, get copyright approval for the figures, make sure all the references are in the format they want and they're correct, and then and so on. And then there's the index. And most people pay to have, you have to pay the publisher, or it comes out of your royalties for the index. And usually they're bad, the indexes. So if you really want to have a good index, you have to do it yourself, and it's a pain in the butt, to put it mildly. So keep that in mind. And then after you've written the book and it's published, then you can go into Amazon every other week and see what your ranking is as far as sales. That's always fun too. So that's all the wisdom I have on publishing. And we're done.
All right, well, I think there's one more round of applause for all the authors and wisdom. And I think one thing clear from all of these is we have a really good sense of humor across the college in terms of the authors, and a tremendous amount of passion behind all of this. So I guess now we can go ahead and open it up to any questions people might have for any author specific or generally speaking, and we'll walk this around to whoever might want to answer. Have any questions? We could do some Tai Chi. You could help us force some people into asking some questions.
We can do the horror.
All right.
So a number of the authors have mentioned that there were some publishers that are better than others. Any names?
Well, all the publishers are pretty well consolidated now. I mean, they keep buying each other out. And so that's, I know McGraw-Hill is still around. Are they under anyone else? Who did they buy? Mayfield, yeah. Cengage was Thompson, and they bought up tons of publishers.
Before that, they were Delmar, who published our book.
We were West, it was Wadsworth. I went through West, Wadsworth, and now Thompson, and now Cengage.
But isn't Delmar still a separate division, though?
Yeah, as is Wadsworth, but it's all under
But it's all
Cengage,
under
which
the
is just up,
it's all under Cengage.
just up in Redwood City.
Elsevier is going to, that's our publisher. Who? Elsevier.
I think we might need a book on all the consolidation of all the different publishing houses.
I have a comment about publishers. I think if you go to a small publisher, they're really often more aggressive at marketing. And so I went with Jones and Bartlett, which isn't that small. They've sold a lot more books than a prestige type publisher like Wiley. So it depends on what you get after. They're both good publishers, but in terms of you want to find one, if your objective is to sell a lot of books, there's a huge difference. So go to the one that puts a lot of flyers in your mailbox in your office.
Yeah, and have reps that come to the universities, because you have to look at their sales force.
I've been with both big and small publishers. The small do market more aggressively, but the larger have larger sales forces. So there are pros and cons on both sides.
Anybody going to ebooks?
Yeah, mine's also on ebook. I didn't have a chance to say that. But with regard to the self-publishing, I think you're getting pretty much what you pay for. I mean, you pay more, you get a better deal.
They're almost all on ebooks now.
I didn't mention, but our book, my cookbook is $23, and depending on how they go about purchasing it, if they purchase it from my Create Space webpage, I make Fred makes $15 for 23. For Amazon, he makes 10. I can buy the book for $3.15 and sell it like at a regatta. And if the big distributions like a brick and mortar institution wants to have it on the shelves, Fred makes a smaller portion of that, but he still is making money on every one of those.
There are also some big publishers that have online books that are, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Harrison's Internal Medicine, but you buy into that and they update it all the time. You can click on a reference, it'll take you to PubMed, you can read the abstract, and it's much more interactive as opposed to a sort of static PDF file that a lot of the ebooks are.
Book that we did is going online this next year, and we're going to make a lot less per book, but I presume more will sell.
Yeah, I pay every year for Harrison's online.
Steve, the larger publishing companies aren't going to stay in business if they're not fair to authors. And the standard royalty rate, for example, is, I would say, 10 to 15% of net. But I've heard of people in smaller companies getting as little as 2%. So you really have to watch the contract and the details in the contracts.
One thing I didn't hear any of our others speak to so much were the reviews, and if you were reviewed unfavorably, how you dealt with it, and just responded to it perhaps.
The books go out for review, various chapters go out for review before they publish.
I'm meaning like customer reviews.
No, but I mean, they send it out, well, these are like professional type books, so they're sent out to other professionals. Yeah.
Right.
And so if the reviews came back before it was published from them, but they didn't like it, then the publisher would do something to change it. Then I suppose you can still get unfavorable reviews after it's published.
Well, Amazon, they do.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I'm referring to.
You know, truthfully,
It's too late.
I haven't.
I know, it's already print.
Yeah, Amazon does that now, but before that, I didn't really see any bad reviews. And then someone was telling me that you've gotten these 5-star reviews already. So frankly, I haven't seen any unfavorable reviews. I mean, truthfully, and we do get a lot of students at conferences and things who will tell us, yours is the best book because yours is the book we do not fall asleep over. And as Heidi was saying for her book, we have so many case studies in it that they think they're just the most fabulous thing going. So we really haven't gotten a lot of bad reviews.